welcome again to the Scotland Excel Procurement Week at the Academy. This session is around technology, and we're lucky to have Martin Wallace with us this afternoon, the Chief Digital Officer from the Scottish Local Government Digital Office. Some of you will have met Martin before. This might be the first time you've met Martin, and he'll have a great presentation up his sleeve for you, I'm sure. But he's going to talk to you today around all things kind of digital technology in the future as he sees it in local government. And basically, I'll hand over to Martin, and he'll talk you through what his thoughts are about digital technology for the future. Over to you, Martin. Thanks.
Thanks, Leslie. I'm just going to try and put these slides up. So as you can see from slide 1, hopefully you can all see the slides. Leslie, can you see the slides?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
Cool, that's fine. I've got 576 slides in 20 minutes, so you better hold on to your hats, people, because this could be quite quick. So thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. I've kind of taken some of the emerging trends. Now, there was quite a lot. I've just tried to get them down to things that are going to be relevant to Scotland and digital and procurement as we go forward. So my job this afternoon is to try and read the future. I did leave my outfit at home, I'm actually at home, but in the other room. So I'm going to try and be Zoltar and trying to give you kind of insights of what's happening. So the current challenges we have in digital at the moment is obviously the post-COVID world. The new world started last year. We've had digital transformation going on for years, and I'm going to talk about something slightly different than transformation in a couple of slides' time. But in the post-COVID world, we have seen mass use of mobile technology, working from home, data sets. Data has become more important than ever before to help realise our challenges and how to support our communities better through the crisis, and also interoperability and collaboration with partners, so local government with health and care, Scottish Government, resilience teams, Police Scotland, it's exacerbated some of the challenges we have, but also given us some great opportunities of how we can actually do things differently. More often as well, we've seen that a bigger chance or a bigger gap has started to form between the haves and the have-nots, between digitally literate, in terms of the vulnerable people we have to support in society as well, and their access to the right technology and tools and skills to be able to work in this new kind of digital world that we're starting to create at a much faster pace now. The other challenge we have digitally just now is microchips are at capacity. There's only so many transistors you can get on one single chip. And due to the pandemic, due to starting in China, due to the, would you believe, the tsunami that happened in Japan, there's actually a worldwide chip shortage across the world. So that is impacting everything from PlayStation 5s to Xboxes for gamers, to cars, would you believe. Ford have been having issues trying to produce some of the cars because they can't get the microchips which powers them behind the scenes, which is crazy, but we're at that capacity stage as well in terms of what we can actually put on transistors. We're creating far too much data and not enough time to process it. So we're seeing a rise in things like robotics and automation, which we'll cover shortly. But exponentially, we need places to store that data. And we store tons upon tons of data, but are we really extracting the right intelligence to make what I call the Martini effect, the right decisions at the right time, the right place, for the right reasons with the right data? So we are having some challenges around about that as well, technically. Power of batteries, the life of being drained, as the resources are becoming quite crazy to try and get, but also we're seeing the rise of different technologies, mobile technologies, cars, batteries in homes, etc. We have a big challenge in terms of range anxiety because of battery length and battery capacity. So that's playing a role in terms of how do we actually create new solutions, but also how do we predict the future. Outdated work processes. Through the pandemic, we have a lot of people who come into an office environment, large places in the middle of cities and towns across the world to do work. And now that outdated work process has been turned on its head near enough overnight in March 13th in the UK. Again, I'll talk about this later on in the presentation, but this is a challenge in terms of still some people with that mindset of presenteeism. No, you are working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and I have to see you face to face in the office to do that. That's changed. I personally, I've worked remotely for 25 years of my career, through private sector into public sector. I would never really go back to working in an office Monday to Friday. It just doesn't appeal to me and doesn't fit kind of my lifestyle either, unfortunately. And last but not least, societal issues are forcing change. So we've got a big rise in terms of inclusion, which is absolutely, absolutely has to happen. But more importantly, the climate change challenge we have around the world as well. How do we, support better use of technology to help support better use of the environment and also better use of reducing CO2, etc. So the trends I'm going to show you today kind of interlink into some of this, some of these challenges we have at the moment. In terms of business ambition for digital, we're kind of looking at digital business strategies, whether you're private and public. There's two key components that these come down to. One is optimization of the business, so things like improving productivity, revenue growth, giving better customer experiences, and then to digital business transformation, which is about starting new products and services and new business models and how we do things. And I'll give you some examples of them in a short while. There's a recipe for digital. And we talk about, well, what are the components that we have for a good digital solution? So it's about customer first. It's about Scottish process service design, putting the customer at the heart of everything we're doing, building around about what matters to them and how do we serve them better. It's about the data on that journey to get to that Scottish process service design to help that customer. It's about mobile first. The majority of people now access their internet and through apps and mobility. It's about cloud, using cloud capacity to scale up, scale down, rather than owning and managing your own data centers in today's day and age. It's just not really cost effective anymore. And then also we've then got cybersecurity risks. So how do we wrap it round? But all of these things have to be done in a kind of a first opportunity. So we have to plan with the customer, the service design, the data. They're going to access these services, by a mobile. It's going to be in the cloud, so we don't actually have to look after the infrastructure. It's looked after by somebody else, and then the security wrap round about it. And if you were at Andy Grayland's chat at 1 o'clock today, he was talking about zero trust environments for cybersecurity as well. So there's the interlink for that one. The fact is, digital transformation has been talked about for a number of years. I've worked in the industry for 25 years of my career, but I'm now calling it digital evolution. We've already set the precedence on digital through consumer apps and the smartphones. I mean, I used to work for BlackBerry, the original smartphone manufacturer. Forget about iPhones, get a BlackBerry if you can still get them these days. But it's about evolving in terms of the rules and things and experiences we have in our personal life. How do we bring it into the workplace? So how do we do this evolution as well? And what are the kind of the key trends? So I've stuck to 7 today. I could have gone down the routes of talking about storing data in DNA, etc. But I thought that's just a wee bit too far away yet. I just thought I'd look at the kind of the immediate things that are coming out from the research we've seen and talking to the likes of Gartner's, Deloitte's and private sector partners as well. So the first one is the hybrid new way of working. So the new office models. March 13th, we had to work from home. There was somebody telling me a story where they were passing Edinburgh City Council on March the 13th, just as they were announcing lockdown. And at the time, the taxi rank for Waverley Station had been pushed right outside the office. And what they were seeing was people moving with desk furniture, chairs, desktops, etc., monitors, going into taxis and going home to work from home. But not everybody has the luxury of a spare room like I have to actually work in an office type environment in the house. And some people prefer to have that work-life balance where they can go to the office to do proper focused work, meet colleagues face to face, because this online is not, it's like being on TV every single day looking at yourself on a mirror, which is certainly not good for me personally. But how do we actually then look at hybrid working and what does that actually mean? So it's a choice of home working, it's a choice of working in the office, or a mix of both. So how do we support staff being productive and collaborative in these areas with the right support? So from a procurement point of view, we need to look at mobile computing, which is quite difficult just now because of that chip shortage. We are seeing long lead times for particular pieces of kit like laptops and tablets. We have to look at the security wrap around the product. How do we manage the products remotely? Booking systems for when people come into the office. So 10, 15 years ago in my old company, we had a booking system where we would use an app on our phone and we would book a desk. And the good thing about the booking a desk, you didn't know who would be sitting beside you, but you'd build up new relationships, which created more creativity and innovation because you were actually dealing with different departments within the organization. So it broke down silo and changed the culture because of that kind of change in the way we actually did things and how we booked out rooms. Meeting rooms as well. Do we really need a meeting room these days when we can use Microsoft Teams? But if we do need a meeting room, how do we have a hybrid solution? How do we have the big screens with the right cameras, etc., the right sound equipment so everybody's heard, and being able to interact remotely as well with the people that are actually working from home? So it really kind of has to be supported by a change in culture, a change in skills, and also the right data and security wrap and connectivity to make these things happen. So that's number one. Number two is more electric vehicles. So we are seeing a big, big push from government to reduce roads and CO2, not roads, reduce the amount of vehicles on the roads and CO2, and using more sustainable challenges or travel rather. So how do we support the environment targets? We're going to see a mass rise in battery-powered vehicles, but do we actually need them? Do we actually need to use these battery-powered vehicles to get around, or can we use public transport or other transport cultures or ways of working to get to work, but also get out to customers as well? So we're going to see a growth in new business models. We're already seeing things like renting vehicles for a month rather than having a long-term relationship of 3 to 4 years when the car depreciates. We've seen things like car clubs for a number of years now, where you could go up and tag it and then use it. But to support that infrastructure, we're going to need charging infrastructure to do this. Internet of Things sensors in the roads as well to manage peak flows of traffic going around about the cities and measuring CO2 emissions, so we can actually close certain roads or certain routes to try and minimize the risk of bad gases, but also trying to help drive driver behavior to do something differently. But also we have to think about security, because when we think about electrical vehicles and electrical infrastructure, that's going to be critical national infrastructure to get our people moving about around about our towns and cities. So we have to think about these kind of elements of procurement and other kind of solutions to actually support that kind of initiative for better environments with the vehicles. Augmented reality, virtual reality. This has been around for years. I mean, I remember working with Samsung about 10, 12 years ago and Oculus, and they had the big kind of virtual reality experiences, but nobody was buying them. It was kind of 3D, 3D TVs came and went because people wanted to maybe watch 3D films at home. They didn't. It was just a kind of way of selling televisions. But we're now seeing more kind of things about augmented reality having things superimposed in front of your glasses to show you what's happening around about you. I've seen some examples of using augmented reality to look at a patient, being able to do heart compressions or being able to assess in the field from a paramedic, but being beamed down with fast connectivity back to a clinician or an A&E doctor to then assess and help with that diagnosis to get to make life-saving changes right there and then before shipping that person back to the hospital. I think for myself personally, I was the first person to own a pair of Google Glass. Google Glass was a glass with a small kind of projector thing that projected into your eyes, and it looked as if you had a 32-inch TV in front of your eyes just out there. And my daughter, who was 8 at the time, said it was how to be a winner and a loser at the same time. So yes, I put up for adoption, to be fair, after that, because I just couldn't handle that kind of rejection and pain. But there's more opportunities for AR and VR in there. We're seeing kind of a rise in people using virtual reality. In Aberdeen City, they used virtual reality to show them what the Aberdeen Gardens looked like before they actually built them. So they had more buy-in from the public for planning. And there is a kind of a more chance of looking at these types of solutions and ideas to actually make this happen as well in our communities. But again, to support this, we need headsets, we need connectivity, we need common data standards for interoperability. We need to put, connectivity packages around about it. The options with 5G make it much, much bigger and better. And we've seen pitches from the likes of Vodafone, EE, O2 in this area. East Leinster Council, Perth and Kinross Council, I'm trying to think of another couple, have also been using virtual reality headsets for education in the classroom. So children can experience things like Aleppo before doing descriptive writing about what it's like to live as a war-torn child in a different country. So these things are going to become more prevalent as we go forward. And Gartner predict that by 2025, 40% of physical experiences that use this kind of type technology will have a higher rate of return. So we can't go to theme parks just now. We can't go out and about. But we've seen a kind of a rise in some schools. We've seen things around about, as I say, remote workers being able to use this technology to help with operational efficiencies and also new experiences as they move forward. Call recording. So what is it? We have no privacy, right? Let's just be honest. We have no privacy. Get over it. We all use smartphones. We maybe use Gmail. We probably walk down the street. There's CCTV cameras following us day in, day out. But we're seeing a rise in terms of being able to record fixed line, mobile, and internet calls for customer service, but being able to actually look at sentiment, being using to use artificial intelligence to understand how the customer's feeling to be able to appropriate the right customer response in terms of helping them with their solution. There's also the potential to transcribe live conversations to have a record of it, rather than just having call recording systems that have been around for years in call centres. It's becoming more and more prevalent as staff are having to work from home, so you don't have a bank of people to listen into calls with. But if you've got that extra technology there to support it, it then means you've got that assurance that things are being done. With policies and regulations, we have to make sure that we're actually obviously abiding to the law in terms of what we offer customers. So again, this technology is becoming more prevalent across the whole space. But fundamentally, you know, in 2023, there's an analog to digital telephone switchover. So your traditional analog telephone lines that we're all using at home just now will change, which obviously links into digital telecare, which we're working with Scotland Excel on just now as a separate project. But we'll need new software, new rules, and also software to be able to record on mobile phones, as well as internet calls to be able to actually do this and meet this kind of emerging trend that's coming out. Obviously, there's ethics to be thought about this, and I'll talk about that separately in a few moments' time. But again, 2025, 75% of conversations at work will be recorded. So are we actually, looking at this just now? Are we thinking about this, or is this something we actually have to start to talk to our customers to understand if this is actually a need we need to look at now and do a joint procurement on to save some money and do some collaborative procurement on? Internet of Things, probably one of the most exciting areas of it, but it kind of links into different portfolios in procurement. It's not just about the IT and the digital people, but sensors in the city. It's about smart cities, remote monitoring things. We've seen examples in Highland Council with remote monitoring Legionnaires and heating temperatures in water tanks to make sure that temperatures kept so there's no kind of bad bacteria being grown. We've seen things in East Renfrewshire Council with ground sensors to look at the temperature of the roads, so we can then plan efficiently the gritter network to make sure that we're getting everything that's even cooler. So if you go down a gully, or down a valley, maybe colder at the bottom, we can get to there first, etc. There's a lot of new stuff coming in from Internet of Things. We're about to kick off a project with CivTech shortly. I don't know if I can say about it yet, but it is around about tourism with a national park. That's all I'm going to say at the moment. But again, it's really using Internet of Things to help provide better experiences as well as operational efficiency. But this can create brand new operating models and businesses from us. It will link into different portfolios like heavy plant hire, vehicle fleet, kitchen equipment. So, in my house, I've got a Wi-Fi lights, Wi-Fi coffee machine. I've got 2 Amazon Echoes, 4 Google Homes. I've got a smart monitor here. I've got a TV in the bathroom I can throw content to. I've got a drone. I can control all my devices in my house by my voice, including my heating and my front door. It's still a mystery while I'm single and live alone, mind you, with all this technology. As my daughter says, again, I'm like Iron Man without the looks or the money. But again, I've got this opportunity that I can actually measure and look at my output from all my devices, but also switch things on remotely, like my coffee machine straight after this meeting to get a coffee. This is kind of where we are in consumer world, but we're seeing this technology becoming a kind of more into the industrial world as well. Again, we need to look at potential cloud storage for all this data and security products to keep it safe. I thought I'd touch upon about kind of new business models and how this could interlink with the portfolio. So if we look at Caterpillar, heavy plant hire, JCBs, etc., the big diggers, drilling equipment, there was a company set up alongside them which had a kind of a model which linked into the sensors in all the devices they sold. So any new car these days will have Internet of Things sensors built in and connectivity back to the manufacturer. Caterpillar were exactly the same. So what they did was they had this marketplace where if somebody, a building site, was looking for a particular vehicle for a particular job, and they couldn't get it from Caterpillar, they could go to this marketplace, look at somebody nearby that's got the equipment they're looking for, and then they could make a bid for it to take it off their site for a couple of days to do the job they needed and then send it back. So that helped with customer experience, customer service, but also kind of utilize the opportunity of using devices for a kind of a short period of time rather than keeping them on site for 3 months at a time and they're not being utilized on a day-by-day basis. So it is showing kind of how Internet of Things can link into other areas of business and technology and portfolio, which we may have not considered before when we're looking at procurement in public sector. Mood-orientated computing. So we've already got some of this happening just now, but it's about using sensors, so wearables like iWatches and Fitbits, but more importantly, it's using sentiment software across our communication platforms like Microsoft Teams, Office 365, to help understand how our customers feeling, linking back to talking about voice recording, but also linking back to how our staff are. And of course, with what we've seen in the pandemic, mental health is a big, big challenge for us all. We have to kind of monitor and make sure our staff are being supported in the right way. With this technology, there was a telecommunications company, who I'll not name, who had a high percentage of engineers leaving their field services roles. I think it's an attrition rate of about 22%, where normal attrition is about 6 or 7%. They put sentiment software out across the network, across their email and communications platform, and it just pulled back, in a word cloud, kind of certain words that were coming up time and time again. They were wet, miserable, leaking jackets, cold, frozen. And they went out and spoke to the engineers, and the engineers were saying, well, it's our uniforms. So they changed the uniforms based on the data they'd collected from the sentiment software, and that reduced that attrition rate down to about, what I think it was 5 or 6%, because they'd actually been able to pick up, in real time, what the challenges were and why they were losing staff or their own internal customer, and able to do something differently with that business model. Now, obviously, there's ethics to be done again on this one. I'm going to come to this very shortly, but there's also potential cloud storage and security products to make sure that this is not being used for the wrong reasons as we go forward. Robotics and AI, one of the most controversial areas. So virtual workers take on workloads that are high volume, high repetition. So we can actually release staff to do the more human element of our jobs in public service and public sector. But we can potentially spot challenges or spot, issues in terms of applications that we might not be able to see from the human eye because we don't have the time to go through every single one. So using AI and robots and chatbots to actually have a better customer experience too. So we're doing a procurement exercise with Scotland Excel around about this, 2 or 3 platforms. Scottish Government are involved, are looking to get involved in this as well. But we're looking at central libraries where the virtual people or the virtual workers will be able to be reused and then sent out across the piece as and when required, which helps speed up the benefits we want to see, but also help with reduce cost and time to deliver things as well. We're not in the realms of artificial intelligence yet. It is really about robotic process automation for those high volume, high transaction things and areas. But I don't want you to panic, because whenever we talk about AI and robots, people say, look, they're going to take over our jobs. And that's just simply not true. So the good thing is that a robot can't replace creative thinking. It can give some ideas and stuff, but it can't be that creative person or taking different mindsets and interactions with your colleagues to come up with a solution. It can't do that creativity thing well. It's not going to be able to replace that. It can't. It's not very good with empathy. Maybe I'm not very good with empathy. Maybe I'm a robot, but it can't replace empathy in a human being, and that human touch just cannot be done by a robot. Communication, because we have to gauge the audience, gauge the person we're speaking to, gauge what the circumstances we're in. That's a multi-factor sensory experience for a human being, which we're very, very good at managing. A robot is not good at that either. So again, it will not be good at communication. Collaborating as well, it's set rules, set with a bias, set with the way it's been programmed, is how it collaborates. So again, not very good with collaborating with others unless it's been programmed to do so. And last but not least, it can't replace UCAR. But I know many of you want it to, especially in Scotland Excel, but it just cannot replace Hugh. Hugh is an individual, a very specific individual. I don't think we'll see a robot replace UCAR anytime soon, so you don't have to worry about that either. If you are worried about your job, there is a website, willrobotstakemyjob.com. You can put in your job codes, you can put in what your job is, and it will tell you what the likelihood of that job being replaced. Lawyers maybe have to be worried about, because it can look at contractual law quite quickly and come up with discrepancies and issues, but everybody else is fine. So do not worry about this, okay? Please do not worry about it. Don't panic. Last but not least, Iceland. So what has Iceland got to do with this? Well, the only way is ethics. So this is a true story, right? Before you think I've made this up, this is a true story. Iceland's population is 230,000 people. They created in 2010 the Icelandabók, which is a book of Icelanders. It's about Icelandic heritage. It's about your genome. It's where you're from. It's about your family lineage and history. The challenge the Icelandic government had was about kissing cousins or families getting close together that they shouldn't be really getting close together. So in their idea or in their mind, they thought about the Icelandica app. So 2 weeks before this was pushed out, to iOS stores and Android stores, they had a debate about ethics about it. And especially the strapline, and this, you can go and look this up if you don't believe me, was bump the app before you bump in bed. True, bump the app before the bump in bed, because in a section, you would be able to sort of shake your phone at the same time, and it would tell you how closely related you are, which could then cause challenges or issues with DNA, with birth defects, etc. It got pulled because ethically, I mean, yes, maybe a good idea, but ethically, maybe not the right way we want to go with. So we have to think about ethics first before we deploy any of these technologies, or else we will get into a lot of trouble from it, and hopefully not headlines about bumping your app before you bump in bed. And I think that's me with 4 minutes left for questions. Leslie, sorry, I thought we went a bit quicker than I thought.
Well done. I'm not so sure about the bump the app bit at the end, but
No, sorry.
No, there we go. Who would have thought it? Nice and well done, Martin. Thank you so much. We literally have got 5 minutes left for some questions for Martin. I don't see any in the chat. The team we're probably having a monitor of that as well. But if anybody has got anything you want to ask Martin, just please raise your hand, and we'll just give it a couple of minutes for that. And if not, we'll close off shortly. So, anyone got anything for Martin?
I know we're about 200 miles an hour as well, so you're probably still trying to keep up.
Nothing so far, Martin. You've obviously stunned them into silence with your bump the app finishing point there. I think we'll close off the session then, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next session takes place at 3:30 for this stream, which is Project Management Fundamentals with Donnie. Just like to thank Martin again for your time today. I think you're frozen now. No, there you go.
No, I've just frozen. If anybody wants to get in contact, go to Digital Office LG on Twitter or digital_MW and just get in contact that way. And happy to proceed or pick up any questions that way as well.
Fabulous. Fabulous as always, Martin. Thank you so much, folks, for joining this presentation. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye, Martin.